Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
$12 million of alleged unpaid rent. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and that is the threat that SeaWorld is facing in a potential lawsuit by the city of San Diego for refusing to pay its bills during the pandemic. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado has the details.
It sounds like a fishtail, but it's not. SeaWorld, the Florida-based theme park, and its landlord, the city of San Diego, are not getting along.
They're in Florida. And I think that they're, quite frankly, just giving a giant middle finger to the city of San Diego and to all of its residents.
Council President Sean Rivera says the theme park still owes back rent from the pandemic, over $10 million, plus penalties. He says the city is done playing nice, and the city council has now given the city attorney the authority to file what he says is a long overdue lawsuit.
Yes, I am angry. I'm angry because a corporation with all of the money in the world has refused to do what every other lessee of the city was able to do, which is pay their rent.
He says while it may be chump change to them,
and they're touting record profits, record revenues, quarter after quarter after quarter, when they're bragging about opening a new SeaWorld in Abu Dhabi.
That money could do a lot of good for San Diegans.
We've got community members who are coming to council and asking for investments in young people, investments in parks, investments in libraries and public safety, and we're $10 million short because SeaWorld thinks that they're special and shouldn't pay their rent.
City Attorney Mara Elliott puts their tab closer to $12 million.
It's a slap in the face to those of us who live here. How dare they treat their partner like this?
She says the community and prime real estate have made SeaWorld what it is today. And while they've been a good partner for 6 decades, the city has reached the breaking point.
So we're going to take it very seriously, and we're going to file our lawsuit as quickly as we can.
Elo Rivera and Elliott say there's always time to negotiate, and despite the fact that SeaWorld has 25 years left on its lease, they could lose a lot more than their good relationship if they don't make good on their promise.
I think San Diego is a special place no matter what. I have no doubt we would be just fine even if SeaWorld was not here. I don't want that necessarily, though. But at a certain point, we have to draw a line in the sand and say that nobody is so special that they shouldn't pay their bills.
We reached out to SeaWorld. They declined an interview and sent us a statement that reads in part, "We have enjoyed a long relationship with the city and remain hopeful we can resolve this matter." Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
For weeks, the Border Patrol kept hundreds of people in a makeshift migrant camp in San Ysidro with virtually no food or shelter. Now local advocates filed a federal complaint alleging inhumane conditions. KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis spoke with one of the advocates.
We want to get answers. Why? What was the logic behind allowing those things to happen? Who gave the orders of allowing them to form? But also, what are we going to do to make sure that it stops and it doesn't happen again?
Lilian Serrano is the director of the Southern Borders Community Coalition. She and other volunteers documented the migrant camp's substandard conditions. She says medical neglect was a big issue. Part of her job was to identify migrants who needed medical attention and tell local Border Patrol agents about it.
Day in and out, all day, letting authorities know of the different medical emergencies. I saw everything you can imagine.
That includes teenagers with broken bones, untreated wounds getting infected, elders without medication, people with severe dehydration.
And we also, talked to a pregnant woman who had been vomiting for hours.
Serrano says Border Patrol agents normally wouldn't give medical aid. So volunteers had to call 911 and get ambulances to take migrants to the hospital. Border Patrol had put around 400 migrants in the makeshift camp last month. It sat between the primary and secondary border walls and appeared to be a way to contain migrants until they were processed. Migrants had no protection from the elements and only got 2 granola bars each day. Customs and Border Protection cleared the camp Monday morning. Serrano says it's still important to file the complaint to make sure the camp remains empty.
Our hope at filing this report is for us to find answers on why was it allowed to happen, but also what as a government are we doing to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Customs and Border Protection did not respond to a request for comment. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
Hepatitis A cases continue to grow in our county. The health department reports 28 cases so far this year, with 18 of them being among people experiencing homelessness. For context, last year, the county reported around 2 cases per month, with only 1 case tied to homelessness. No single outbreak location has been identified, and no specific food or water source has been found. The declared state of emergency with the COVID-19 pandemic may be over, but the virus isn't totally gone. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman says a program to track COVID and other viruses in our wastewater is continuing.
You might remember this, waiting in line to get a COVID test. A couple of days later, you got your results, but now at-home testing is easier and more efficient. However, those results aren't tracked county-wide, and that's where San Diegan's sewage comes in.
Although not everyone takes a test these days or reports their test, everyone poops.
Rob Knight pioneered wastewater testing for COVID at UC San Diego. It's proven to be an early indicator of viral spread, with detection up to 2 weeks before normal testing. That's because infections first develop in someone's gut. Now that sewage testing is continuing on.
Although there's a general feeling that COVID's over, it could be like the flu, where there's new variants that arise that are much worse than the variants that we have currently. And if you have to set up the program again from scratch, train all the staff and so on, it's very difficult to do that. So as an insurance policy, it's extremely valuable to keep it going.
Knight says the amount of COVID in the wastewater is low right now. In fact, the lowest in over a year. In the past, we've seen summer and winter surges as the virus evolves. Wastewater testing allows researchers to see within a day or two what strain or variant is dominant, something that Knight says is key.
You probably remember the Omicron spike that caught everyone by surprise, and then before that, the Delta spike that caught everyone by surprise. We'd really like there to be no more surprises at this point.
San Diego County Public Health Officer Dr. Wilma Wooten says her office is contracting with UCSD to continue wastewater testing for at least 5 more years.
I personally view wastewater testing as the future of surveillance in public health.
Wooten says the county is also working with partners to look for other diseases in wastewater, including the flu, norovirus, and RSV.
That's the beauty of wastewater testing, is the early detection of viruses.
Right now, samples are taken from 3 wastewater treatment plants twice a week. On UCSD's campus, they have their own testing process. It examines samples taken nearly every day from more than 100 locations. Knight says research is underway to see how wastewater data can be used in other ways too.
This idea that you can not only monitor health right now, but use it to predict the future.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
And another virus that we have not heard as much about lately, Mpox. Coming up, why the CDC is renewing calls for people who are most at risk to get vaccinated. As the number of tech companies rolling out AI tools like ChatGPT has grown, so has congressional interest in creating ways to regulate it. But first, they need to understand it. Here's Karen Kafa with a look at what Congress needs to know and what the tech industry sees as the greatest risks.
The next big thing in technology is already here, and Congress is playing catch up.
Too often, we have seen what happens when technology outpaces regulation.
A Senate Judiciary Subcommittee hearing kicking off Tuesday with those AI-generated remarks. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman testifying amid concerns sparked in part by the technology behind his company's chatbot tool, ChatGPT.
My worst fears are that we cause significant harm to the world.
Artificial intelligence has generated many fears, replacing or disrupting human jobs, spreading misinformation, perpetuating biases, becoming too prolific or powerful.
I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong.
And it's strong skepticism from the public, lawmakers, and even the tech industry.
I can't recall when we've had people representing large corporations come before us and plead with us to regulate them.
Altman said he is mindful of the risks, but there are benefits to pursuing the technology responsibly.
We are working to build tools that one day can help us make new discoveries and address some of humanity's biggest challenges, like climate change and curing cancer.
Lawmakers noting the federal government's failure to regulate social media serving as a wake-up call.
Sensible safeguards are not in opposition to innovation.
As AI's real potential remains uncertain.
What kind of an innovation is it going to be? Is it going to be like the printing press, or is it going to be more like the atom bomb?
In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
San Diego is one of the top cities in the country for multi-generational households, and each home of 3 generations or more is different. For the new KPBS series Under the Same Roof, reporter Katie Hyson spoke with a family who was together for the COVID lockdowns and then never moved out.
Let's go down this way.
Come on. When Jill Riggs moved into her parents' house in Julian in 2012, it was empty. She and her husband came to manage the nearby trailer park her parents own. Right before COVID, her parents returned for what they thought was a temporary stay. But then Riggs had a son, Frankie, in February 2020. And then COVID hit.
It was a godsend that we were all here.
That's Riggs's mother, Kathleen Rose, now. But Riggs had different words to describe the nights with her newborn during lockdown when her mother was still making plans to build another house.
She was obsessed with measuring everything of this house till like midnight. And I was just counting the hours before my son had to get fed in the middle of the night. And I'm just like, if I hear that tape measure one more time.
I forgot about that.
None of them ever expected to live under the same roof. But they say it just worked. They started sharing daily cocktail hours and meals.
Come here, Frankie, come on.
Debating politics and gardening. It was nice, for the most part, to share daily life. So they never left. It's the 5 of them. And 2 dogs, 3 cats, and often Frankie's baby cousin, Waldo. Rose now likes seeing her family more than just on the holidays, and that someone's always around in case something happens as she and her husband age.
There's never a feeling of loneliness, and you hear that that's such a hard thing for people as they get older, and you know, we're not experiencing that at all.
Riggs's father, Frank Spevacek, likes being around not just his daughter and son-in-law, but their friends.
My parents moved to a retirement community, and I have no real understanding of why anyone would do that, because it's nice to be current with what the next generation and next generations are doing, because it makes life really interesting.
Riggs likes the built-in babysitters.
If you just need that one moment and you're like, go find your grandparents, and you send them along and you shuttle them away.
And 3-year-old Frankie?
Hey, what's your favorite thing about living with Bubby and Jenna?
Frankie had no comment. The house has high ceilings and large windows overlooking their own 12 acres of nature. The grandparents added a private bedroom and bathroom in the yard, though Rose now says private is a loose term.
Like this morning when the boys all decided to come in the shower with me. Puppy, what are you doing? I'm taking a shower. Oh, hi.
They have way more space than many of San Diego's multi-generational households. And the house is paid off, so there's less financial strain, too. Sociologists say this kind of situation is ideal. Multi-generational living leads to better life outcomes, higher college attendance, more social mobility, more resources, and better community relationships. Frank Spevacek's family is reaping these benefits with less of the costs.
Go!
I just think this is quite a luxury to be able to live like this.
In the following weeks in this series, we'll bring you stories from multi-generational households that don't have some of these advantages, but are still making it work. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
And so do you have a story to tell about your multi-generational household? You can go to kpbs.org/roof. Time is running out for Congress to nail down debt ceiling legislation before the June 1st deadline. That's when U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says the country will run out of funds to repay its debts. Ivan Rodriguez explains what this means for American families.
Washington's window to raise the debt ceiling is narrowing, as the U.S. is just over 2 weeks away from potential default if an agreement isn't reached.
If Congress failed to raise the debt limit by the time we default, we would go into a recession and be catastrophic.
Weekend staff-level talks between Capitol Hill and the White House were productive, according to sources familiar with the talks. But as President Joe Biden may be preparing to meet with top congressional leadership Tuesday, the way forward appears unclear.
I think we'll be able to do it.
It doesn't seem to me that they want it.
A U.S. financial crisis could unleash chaos around the world and impact millions of Americans.
Defaulting on our debt isn't only about financial markets, it's about paying our Social Security recipients, it's about paying our troops, it's about paying the men and women who are working the border today.
Bankrate's Greg McBride says the uncertainty alone is enough to wreak havoc on family finances.
It doesn't take more than just a brief disruption to create a hole that households may take months, if not years, to dig out of.
This as Americans are already contending with record household debt, more than $17 trillion worth, according to a new report from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York.
The more money that households are putting into debt payments, that's less money that's available for discretionary spending, which is a headwind to the economy.
But McBride says there are two key ways to protect yourself as economic conditions grow less stable.
Paying down debt and boosting your emergency savings. Focus on high-cost debt like credit cards.
I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting.
We're getting a better idea of just how dire the shortage of doctors and nurses is across the country. The Health Resources and Services Administration released new data. More than 17,000 additional primary care doctors, 12,000 dentists, and more than 8,000 mental health practitioners are needed across the country. The shortage is more acute in Black and brown communities. Leaders of historically Black medical schools are calling for more funding to train a more diverse workforce. They say having a workforce that reflects the communities served would help reduce the health inequities. It's been a year since the first Mpox case was reported in the U.S. during the global outbreak, and now the CDC is once again raising the alarm about the virus. Mandy Gaither has more on why there's a concern about a possible resurgence of cases this summer.
A new warning from the CDC about a potential risk for new cases of Mpox to surge this summer.
We're coming up on Pride Week right now when there are a lot of celebrations within our populations that are at highest risk for getting Mpox. And we don't want to see a month-long celebration turn into a tragedy.
Mpox is a viral disease that spreads through close contact. It can infect anyone, but in the 2022 outbreak, infections were mostly among men who have sex with men. Right now, a cluster of Mpox cases is being investigated in the Chicago area, where the CDC says there have been at least a dozen confirmed cases and one probable case reported between April 17th and May 5th. All the cases were among men between the ages of 24 and 46. All had symptoms, but none of the patients has been hospitalized. 9 of those 13 cases were among men who had received both doses of the 2-dose Jynneos Mpox vaccine. 4 of the men had recently traveled to New York, New Orleans, and Mexico.
We don't know how long the vaccination is going to provide immunity, nor do we know how long necessarily natural disease is going to provide immunity.
Dr. Kristen England with Cleveland Clinic says it's still important for those at highest risk of Mpox to be vaccinated.
For folks who have been vaccinated and still get Mpox, it is strongly suspected that the Mpox that they currently have is much less severe than it would have been if they had not gotten the vaccine.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Overall, the weather over the course of the next couple of days not looking to be overly active. There will be some temperature fluctuations, and we will have the potential for some thunderstorms over the mountains, especially as we work our way into Sunday. A little change, though, like I said, overall in temperature. Speaking of temperatures, for tonight, we're dropping down into the upper 50s. Still some impacts with some coastal clouds, and we'll see those stretching north and south. Again, around Oceanside down to 58, the same toward Chula Vista. Ramona 52, Mount Laguna up to 60 degrees, and Borrego Springs dropping down to 73. Notice on Futurecast, you see some showers and thunderstorms out to our east throughout Arizona, even into southern Nevada. Could see a few of those popping up north of Los Angeles into the San Bernardino County Mountains as we go into Wednesday afternoon. So some moisture, again, not too far away, off to the east and the northeast. A little bit on the cool side compared to the historical averages. So San Diego 67 for tomorrow, Oceanside 69, the same in Chula Vista, Borrego Springs. Another warm one out there as we climb to 101. Let's take you down the road here at the coast and notice those temperatures could climb a degree or two as we head into the weekend. Some clouds around as we venture our way into Saturday. Some of that moisture trying to make its way in. We'll also notice again some nice conditions over the course of the next couple of days over the interior valley. Temperatures will be climbing up into the 80s by Sunday. Toward the mountains, though, it stays cool the next couple of days, especially on Friday. And then notice there can be some of that moisture coming in here as we work our way into the weekend, where there can be a shower or even a thunderstorm. Into the deserts we go, and notice our warmest day would be here heading into Wednesday. After that, there will be some clouds around as some of that mid-level moisture trying to make its way in. And temperatures will come down just a bit into the mid-90s, and that's where we'll stay as we head our way into the weekend. Overnight lows waffling between the 60s and the 70s. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Popick.
A small brewery in North County slayed the competition and brought home the gold at the Olympics of beer. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Nguyen takes us to
Walking through the door of Battle Mage, you get a sense this is not your usual craft brewery. On the walls, there are swords and records of D&D quests. That's Dungeons and Dragons for the non-nerds. The fantasy role-playing game is not why these two lifelong best friends decide to build their brewery around that concept. Co-owner Chris Berry says the concept was an innate part of who they are.
It was gonna be a place where nerds could come, group together, talk about nerdy things, and it's worked out so far.
But that's not why we're here. Battle Mage is one of 3 local breweries to bring home the gold last week at the World Beer Cup in Tennessee. The competition is considered the Olympics of beer.
The response was pure elation.
Co-owner Ryan Sather was driving to the brewery when he heard the news.
I think my first reaction is I turned to a customer and I said, this must be what heroin feels like, this feeling, because it was just so raw in the emotion. This is a competition we've been excited about winning since we were homebrewers a dozen+ years ago.
This is the beer that won the award. It's Summon Ifrit, a hoppy amber, and it's a balanced blend of malt and hops. And here's the taste. Barry says it's not a popular beer with customers, but it resonates with brewers.
I think this beer stands out particularly for this style because it has a little bit more hop character than most reds or ambers that I've tried. It also finishes quite a bit drier, so it doesn't really have like a lingering sweetness to it.
The beer is Sather's recipe, and he first entered it into competition 10 years ago.
Oh, I lost that initial competition badly.
But over the years, he's refined the recipe to what it is now.
So I think the main thing that changed was upping the dry hopping to it to give it a little bit more hop aroma.
Now, with a world-class winning beer on their hands, the pair is looking to expand to a second location and, of course, enter in more beer competitions. In Vista, Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
And here's another look at today's top stories. The city of San Diego says it plans to take SeaWorld to court over alleged unpaid rent. The city council voted 8-0 to give the city attorney authorization to sue SeaWorld. The exact amount of money the city is seeking is not yet known, as the lawsuit has not been formally filed. However, City Council President Sean Elo Rivera noted in a statement that $12 million is owed, including penalties and interest. A federal complaint has been filed over what local advocates say were inhumane conditions at a makeshift camp in San Ysidro. For weeks, Customs and Border Protection kept around 400 migrants at a camp between the primary and secondary border walls, and that camp was cleared yesterday. Advocates say migrants had no protection from the elements and received virtually no food or water. The complaint was filed to make sure the camp remains empty. CBP did not respond to a request for comment. And although the public health emergency may be over, the program to track the spread of COVID-19 and other viruses in our county continues. Rob Knight pioneered wastewater testing for COVID at UC San Diego, and it's proven early indicator of viral spread with detection 2 weeks before normal testing. Knight says the amount of COVID in wastewater is low right now, and the county is now testing wastewater for other diseases, including the flu, norovirus, and RSV. And here is a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. The American Academy of Pediatrics recently updated its guidelines for treating childhood obesity. On NPR's Morning Edition, how parents have differing ideas for their own kids. And on KPBS Midday Edition, you can hear the latest episode of the original podcast, Freeway Exit, along with a conversation on Sandag's failed road usage charge. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.